Have just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people?
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously, we're fucked. We are fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, you. Doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Pam?
Cheers and salutations. Smoke 'em if you got them.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
INN News.
Yeah.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Oh, I know. It's alright. I got it. I gotta pop things out. And then bring it up here. Come on, do a thing. There we go. I fixed it. Look at that, I did it. Yeah, we did it. We'll do it live.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Yeah. Care Bear, guess what? Care Bear? New chair.
Oh. No more squeaky chair.
No more squeaky chair. No, it's here. It's going to be backup chair. Early Crimbus, yeah.
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 Explain the chair.
If for big people so that I don't break it. That's the chair.
No, I know that. But like, what happened that you got said chair?
It was like on sale for Black Friday weeks, I think.
Okay.
So it was like 200, something like that. 230, wasn't awful. So, but they can be pricey for people like me. It's weird. You think America would make fat people stuff cheaper, but only the food that makes you fat. That's the cheap stuff.
Well, I think the idea is more expensive is because it needs more materials.
Materials.
Bigger for you. So
you'd think. Someone's complaining about that for like Lululemon's prices were all the same, even for like bigger sizes. And they're like, the fat people are making it more expensive for me. And it's like, well, shouldn't have been so skinny then, huh, lady? Fuck. Put some meat on those bones. Jeez. Anyway, how are you doing? You holding up? You doing all right?
Sure.
No. I don't know if anyone will show up today because they're probably with family.
That's fine.
But we're still going to do some stuff.
Well, people will have the clips and people can watch the replay.
Yep.
When they're drunk with food and drink tomorrow afternoon or whenever over the weekend when they get a chance to. And as usual, we'll have clips out later in the week. We almost didn't. We almost didn't do a stream tonight because we were just kind of like, what was there to talk about? But we did find some stuff collectively that we were like, oh, we could actually do a show pre-Thanksgiving. So yeah. Hi everyone. I guess Angel's here. Shout out to Angel. Thank you for being the
Angel?
only one here.
So you gotta
far,
wait. You
as far
can't
as
eat all
I
the
know.
snacks yet. You gotta wait for them tomorrow. No snackos. That's all for tomorrow. I know all of y'all are prepping that food. You gotta prep it. You can't eat it. You gotta prep it. You know. So
I'm sure people can prep while they listen to us. So, so
Nope.
should we get started?
yeah.
All right.
What would you bring?
So it's not really a light week for us, but that made me kind of a
Light-ish?
little lighter on themes somewhat. So this is a comedian that I know of, Yedoye Travis, who I do follow. And we featured a couple of things that he's done on this show before. But he wrote a Substack article that I thought was very interesting. He brings
Coming
up,
to a Substack newsletter near you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yep.
So he wrote a Substack that I found interesting in terms of kind of what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks post-election, like it was all about vibes and people pretending, everything's okay when they really aren't, and how artistry plays a role in that for him as a comedian / writer / actor. So I saw this. So I know he published it, and it kind of went on. It kind of did a thing on Instagram over the weekend. So I figured, okay, well, might as well pull it and read it. I
Did it for the
I
groom.
I've enjoyed his work, and I enjoy his comedy. He's somewhat like George Carlin-esque vibe, somewhat, but
Okay.
not quite, but kind of on those lines.
Who choose the field?
Somewhat political as well.
Yeah.
So figure we'll read his article tonight, just to kind of continue the vibe of, people who are kind of against just the heads in the sand now that people are having, well, previously, and now kind of like clutching their pearls now that we have Trump. So we're going to read his article in a couple of minutes. And then later on tonight, you pulled this up.
Yeah.
Since tomorrow is Thanksgiving, also known as Genocide Day.
National Day of Mourning and all that.
National Day of Mourning, which we feature every year at this time. You pulled an article from the Palestine Chronicle that talks about the parallels between the Native Americans and their genocide and the Palestinians and theirs. So I think they're kind of obvious, but
fitting.
But we'll go into that a little bit more in depth tonight.
Yep.
And then what did you bring?
I've been on an AI tear this last couple of weeks, so figured we might talk about some relevant news with that. New memorandum from the Biden regime before they head out to allow, deep state entities like the NSA and the CIA to get involved with artificial intelligence. Details at 11. But yeah, that's probably not what possibly could go wrong with that, Care Bear? Could be fine. And I also brought this vicious Palestinian mafia. You might be wondering what that might mean. There's some RICO cases coming up against Palestinian protesters, so we're gonna get into that shenanigans that Illnois is being a part of. So, that's what I got. So,
okay.
Anyway, you ready to get to it? So,
before we do that, I want to thank you guys for supporting us here on the network. As you guys know, we are demonetized. YouTube doesn't like our content, and they're not pushing our content to the algorithm. So the only way that we're able to kind of get known in the space is number one, through word of mouth and sharing our content. But then number two, obviously with demonetization, we're not able to help pay for the things that we need in order to keep this channel running. So if you would like to do that, you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen if you have a smartphone, or you can type in the link that you see at the bottom of that screen. If you're in YouTube chat, you can type in !donate, and the link will come up, and you can and you can click on that directly to give how much you would love to give. As little as $1 is helpful. As we say every week, please take care of yourselves, take care of your families, take care of your communities, take care of your families first, especially now this time of year. I'm sure, presents need to be bought, food needs to be bought, traveling needs to be bought. We understand this is a very stressful time for a lot of folks. That being said, if you do have some extra money that you would love to give to us, we'll be most appreciative of them. And as we said earlier, please like, share, and subscribe. That's the only way that will help us to grow this channel as well as the show. And please feel free to make a comment either in chat. And I will say, please try to keep that. And we know a lot of you come in and hang out and chat and check in with each other. That's wonderful. We love that. But we also want you guys to kind of check in terms of what we're talking about. Guess what? We do read them, even we don't have super chats, but we will read your comments live if we think it relates. So please make sure that you are paying attention, so that, and at least saying something that relates to the segment, so that we might even feature you as part of the conversation. And thank you guys for watching. We love you, and happy Thanksgiving to you all. Angel says that he's has to season the bird. His bird. What are you seasoning it with, Angel? I'm curious.
I hope Sazon Tropical, just because Puerto Rico be rocking that shit. But that's just me. It'd make it super orange though. Like orange turkey be great. But anyway,
although I'm wondering, Angel, if you're still here, do you also have pernil? I know typically that's Christmas, but you can have that at Thanksgiving. So I'm wondering, would you have that?
I gotta bring out the coquito too. But people boricua. Anyway, you ready for this?
Yep. So we featured this guy at least over a year ago. Very short clip that we pulled. We're gonna watch that clip again, by the way.
Okay.
Just to give you guys a little taste of his rantings. But this is Yedoye Travis. He's an actor, comedian, writer. He did a YouTube show that was based on anime, which I think is no longer, I think they basically disbanded. So
okay.
But that's how I first came to know of him. And I know, and I do follow him on Twitter and Instagram, and I do know him to be somewhat political. I would argue he's definitely left-leaning in terms of, kind of calling out the establishment in terms of capitalism, and more especially right now, in terms of what happened in Palestine. He's very pro-Palestine. And, so he, not often, but he will definitely make his thoughts known, at least on Instagram. That's where he's most prolific in the social media space. I do want to play, so gave me a few minutes to find it, but I do want to kind of play the clip that we featured over a year ago of him when he was a part of Getting the Robot. That's the anime-based channel that he was a part of. And the segment that I'm going to show you is based on his analysis of Attack on Titan. Those of you who watched that show, I've not watched Attack on Titan at all. So even though I do like anime, but I do want to play a little bit of, some of his analysis on the thing. And I loved, when I watched it in particular, I loved what he brought in terms of the capitalist themes that are in the show and how it relates to, our current administration, which I thought was all funny, but also very poignant. So, so if you don't mind playing that clip for us, just to give you guys a taste of Yedoye in action, and then we will continue.
The Walled Society portrayed in the first few seasons of AOT later
Go ahead.
Yep.
Revealed to be called Paradis by the citizens of Marley is just so overrun with terror that it's really difficult to give an objective assessment of quality of life in a controlled setting. From the first episode, all we really know is that allegedly the last known survivors of humanity are living in an enclosure that consists of 3 concentric walls, Wall Sina, Wall Rose, and Wall Maria, that have managed to avoid attack by the Titans for about a century, which is great because if they were to attack, you definitely would not want to live in, oh, they attacked. Okay, well, now that that's happened, let's talk about how this society is structured from an architectural standpoint. So, obviously, 3 walls means Paradis is broken up into 3 distinct interiors, each with its own populace, and I think it's safe to say, given the abundance of naked, sexless demons walking around outside, it's probably safe to assume that the outer wall is the least desirable place to live, followed by the interior of Wall Rose, and then Cena is just like 24/7 brunch and for Joe Biden as president, and people act like polite drone strikes will somehow save the Middle East.
Sure.
Well, funny enough, I think that was published well over a year ago, way before, I think maybe even 2 years ago, way before this assault in Gaza right now. So the fact that you kind of mentioned that toward the end of that. So, so like I said, this was featured on the channel Get in a Robot. They are no longer produce anything there. I think they disbanded, but you can still watch their content there. So highly recommend that you check that out if you're a fan of anime, and if you want to check out a little more of what Yedoye had shared.
You've never watched the show? So
Attack on Titan?
Yeah.
No.
So is the article kind of like in the same vein, like on the topic, or like
on Attack on Titan? No, not on Attack on Titan at all. But this he's been like, every once in a while he'll kind of say something very not cryptic but very short, just being like,
throw it in there.
Like especially among Democrats, it's just like Democrats suck, that kind of thing. So I think this article he wrote just kind of, actually he says it like he was working on something else, but I guess he had a lot on his mind, so he decided to write this Substack instead.
Okay.
So he wrote, this vibe deserves to die, and I hope it burns in hell. So what's the vibe? You could probably guess what vibes he's talking about, because we mentioned it on the show before. But I love to hear. But we're gonna read to see what Yedoye thinks of that. So here we go. As usual, I feel the most inspired when I'm supposed to be writing some other shit, but I'll forgive myself for adding a little bit more stress to the latter half of my day. My feeling today, and in general, is that the vibes have been too good for too long, and this shit needs to end. And I'm sure that sounds insane coming from me, a known hater, in a time where there are so many things to hate, but I look around every day and I feel like, in spite of everything, we all remain committed to the illusion that everything is fine. And as bad as it all is, I am not only referring to simultaneously the most documented and most ignored genocides of all time in the Congo, Palestine, and Sudan, or the global rise of fascism, or the fact that 2024 is now the 3rd hottest year on record in a row.
Yep.
I'm referring to the fact that, broadly speaking, We have a culture of keeping our feelings about these things to ourselves in the interest of preserving a superficial vibe that is slowly killing all of us. I've been saying for over a decade we're gonna it's not that serious ourselves into the apocalypse. And unfortunately, that is exactly what seems to be happening. And I wonder when it gets serious enough that we actually decide to be fucking for real with ourselves. I've been a stand-up comedian for going on 13 years, and I've watched us go through so many trends as an industry that I've only grown more suspicious of the avenues for which we've been expected to build our careers. And in the modern age of TikTok, IG Reels, and podcast micro-celebrities, I'm willing to bet the average age of famous comedians these days is considerably lower than even 10 years ago, because the pandemic made internet fame just as viable as real fame for arguably the first time, unless you're a fan of rap music, and because this generation of comics, not that I'm so much older than them, didn't get burnt out on late-stage YouTube, Vine, Sesso, Quibi, audio-only podcasting, Clubhouse, or any of the other features that inevitably get swept up into Meta's UI. What all of these things have in common is a supposed democratization of art, all while seemingly have no handle on what democracy actually is. And I think based on, can you zoom in, please? Thank you. And I think based on all the cries about saving democracy by voting for someone who, like her or not, was handed the nomination without any of our consent and is actively committing genocide, I would argue many of us don't know what it means either. I don't want to get too deep into it and risk parroting things I've heard from David Graeber and about the Federalist Papers and how, if there were direct democracy, poor people would vote to redistribute land and wealth, but it's worth a quick Google search. The point I'm building toward is that as the years have gone on, I've watched the world get worse and worse, hotter and hotter, closer and closer to asynchronous societal collapse, and in the midst of all of this, artists, who we all seem to acknowledge have some role to play in whatever revolutionary quote-unquote headcanon we've adopted, have been regularly enticed by entertainment industry vultures who technically acknowledge that the game we've been playing up till now has been fucked up, shady, rigged against us, and all sorts of similar platitudes. And these vultures are offering us a way out by taking a chance on their platform, app, product, whatever. This has left us with a landscape where the people who make it are even the ones who don't see for the grift, who have to drive to grift right back and become glorified social media marketers who do comedy on the side.
Yep.
Sounds very familiar, even in the media. I've plenty of measured respect for my peers that go that route, but the fact of the matter is that in a creative landscape that rewards quantity over quality and undercuts the creative process by offering a vague way out, but only on its own terms, whatever radical democratic potential we believe artists to have is completely nullified, and we end up in a world where stating the obvious, that we have been watching a genocide on our phones for over a year, brings a hush over a room like we don't all know it's happening. And that's not to say every comedian needs to do such intense social commentary. There's just as much to be said about the ones who bask in the algebra horror and build a personal brand out of trauma porn. But I do believe we need to elevate our baseline understanding about the purpose of art, especially comedy, since I believe it's the most subject to this type of obfuscation. Our current world is fixated on running from its problems, and we convince ourselves the role of comedian is to help us do that. So we hate the ones who see the world for what it is and put all of our weight behind the ones who put hour-long crowd work special threatening women in the audience with sex. It has never since amazed me the glory and overall penis suckery that we give George Collin's name, whilst simultaneously demonizing anyone who has the nerve to earnestly imitate him in any substantial way that goes beyond taking the power away from the N-word as a white man. We love the part that tells it like it is, but we hate the part that reads critical theory and knows what manufacturing consent means. I think it's safe to say we're all feeling different degrees of the same pain, but we've been driven to put it to the side in search of fame that we only want because our collective sense of community has been in shambles for hundreds of years. See Eric Fromm's Escape from Freedom for more on this. Meanwhile, the vultures take advantage of the fact that our only emotional reprieve is paying a therapist to help us blame our parents or other people in our community for our problems while ignoring the broader systems that drove the wedge in our networks in the first place. I think that, like every other art form on the planet, we can use stand-up comedy to engage with the entire breadth of human experience and to move through our collective suffering instead of tiptoeing around it. And I don't mean it in the I'm X identity, please clap while I stare into the middle distance kind of way. I mean, we can actually take our time to seriously engage with the ideas that we've collectively been running from and stop trying so damn hard to protect a vibe that sucks us to such a clinical degree. We are the imperial core, just barely teetering on recognition that our comfort is entirely dependent on the suffering of others, see Union-made weapons in Gaza. And while I don't believe it will necessarily fix anything, I do believe that political and creative imagination are part of the same mechanism, and that maybe if we can apply the same critical thinking that Seinfeld's dumbass applied to Pop-Tarts, we can at least envision a world that is actually worth living in. If we want to escape this hell, maybe we need to stop chasing algorithms and checks from shady production companies that couldn't help you sell out a special taping of your hometown for legal reasons. This is purely hypothetical. And allow ourselves to be genuinely curious about the world and the people around us and create art that actually embraces humanity, whether it is profitable or not. Even if the ICC warrants are enforced, business as usual makes the next genocide, the next pandemic, and the next climate catastrophe inevitable. And if our solution to that is to keep making jokes about green text bubbles, like children didn't die to make iPhones too, then I don't know what to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I resonate with this a lot.
Sure.
In terms, obviously not as an artist, but definitely as we make content here, and we definitely see this even in our space where it is news, but it's still the idea of chasing the algorithm and you know, and like and I mean, to be fair, we do have some creative license or at least control of what we cover. The problem is, if you want to make it viable, especially if you want to do this full time, you have to play the algorithm's game, which often than not does not include, as we keep saying,
Yes and no.
content that we
Where it's like I saw Caitlin make a thing about this today too, where like especially lefty people who become more successful, right? It's like the more rich you are, the more right wing you get, because therefore it affects you more, right? Like very similar stuff. Not that I believe that, but you know, I think it can be an effective thing, especially when you get more around more successful people. It starts to affect you. You know, their thoughts start to slip in there a bit. But I think you see like a lot of channels that don't do that and have built long-term like connections with their audience do way better, like in the long run. But it's tough. Like, I think people chase that number a lot. So
right, but I also argue those channels more often than not have been around for a long time.
Yeah, you got to be in it for a minute to do that.
Way before the fuck shit on YouTube it was even a thing.
Yeah.
And so that's not to say they're not chasing the algorithm either, but they had it easier in terms of like not having to do the hoops that you were able to do in order to get monetized, period, on YouTube. But then, you know, you like back over what 15 years ago, like it was literally the Wild West on YouTube. You can produce whatever as long as you made a lot of it and people were watching you, then it was fine. But now it's become, now you have to worry about ads. Now you have to worry if you're ad friendly, and money has become into the picture and it's become more corporate, that we even have to kind of tiptoe around like things that we should say or clips that we may or may not be able to play, because worrying about, like
copyright
AI,
or whatever. Yeah.
copyright, all that kind of stuff, that could get us banned, that could get us strike, or even worse yet, have the channel just gone.
Yeah.
And I know that that's happened to channels before, like with no warning, like YouTube just crashed and burned their channel without any warning. So, but Yedoye, as an artist, as a creative, brings up, art. Well, I think in his mind, comedy. In terms of comedy being almost the format of being able to, bring up a lot of these
Voice those opinions. Yeah.
In a way that's somewhat more palatable, but it
Mhm.
makes you think. And unfortunately, and I think, as I said, he's definitely like George Carlin leaning, I think, in terms of what he wrote in this article. And I think overall, like if you see his acts, and unfortunately I couldn't play any of his acts here because they're on Comedy Central and
Yeah.
copyright,
Or HBO or whatever.
or HBO
Yeah.
or anything like that. But but you heard what he says. He's not like the typical comedian that we see today that kind of goes into like sex and drugs and all that kind of stuff. Like
He did that too, but he also
I'm sure
had
he
a
does that, but
conscience
even
to
in
where
the way, but in the delivery, that even like you could tell in the article, or even with the clip that we watched before, like it reads more like an essay in terms
Yeah.
of
a sermon,
like
usually from
right,
him.
right,
So,
but
especially
like
his
in
later
terms of
specials.
right,
You know.
but like but that kind of thinking, which I felt like was popular in the 90s, like early aughts.
Well, it was
That's what you saw a lot
partially
of
the
that comedy.
counterculture was thought. Like rational
Right.
thought was like deemed, you're like going against the norms and the counterculture and any of that stuff. Like that was frowned upon at that point. So a lot more comedians were doing that then.
Right.
You
I
know?
just feel like, not to say like during the 90s, like they weren't raunchy, like I think
Yeah.
of someone like Andrew Dice Clay, that was his thing. But
Yeah.
like I more commonly, at least the comedians that I watch, they might use being raunchy as maybe the hook, but like they go a little deeper beyond.
The Pryors, the Carlins, there's always been someone out there. There's comedians now. I play them on, boats where like they're spitting stuff out too, but like you got to look for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're not as popular, and
Mhm.
As Yedoye says, like it's but I think ultimately it's the idea of like people are looking for an escape, which I totally get, but
Yeah.
to make the escape fully and not kind of
There was a bit.
be at
I think it was Pryor, where and like it's only been talked about in passing, right? Where he went into this room and like acted as like Jesus, and was like, "And what did you guys do to me? What happened?" Right? And it's like, how about the kids? Are the kids doing okay? Like, is the world still good? And just like eventually it just turned into screaming and like he walked out of the room. Like it was one of those sets that was like super experimental from him that like you could only do once, really, but like, yeah, there's plenty of those that like I wish more of them did. It's hard when comedy's become such a corporate thing now.
right.
Musicians are the same problem. All of them are the same problem. It's like either you're in line and like you're, or the industry spits you out and never lets you back again. So, but you brought Miss Nina.
Kind
Um,
of speaking of musicians, You know,
Yeah.
like, and what she says here, I think about Jesse a lot, you know, in
Sure.
terms of, you know, like using art. You know what? Let's listen to what she says first, and then we'll go into it.
An artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times. I think that is true of painters, sculptors.
Hello? Can it work? Alert. Come on. What happened? Let's try that again, shall we? Come on. There we go. Play full screen.
An artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times. I think that is true of painters, sculptors, poets, musicians. As far as I'm concerned, it's their choice. But I choose to reflect the times and the situations in which I find myself. That to me is my duty. And at this crucial time in our lives, when everything is so desperate, when every day is a matter of survival, I don't think you can help but be involved. Young people, black and white, know this. That's why they're so involved in politics. We will shape and mold this country, or it will not be molded and shaped at all anymore. So I don't think you have a choice. How can you be an artist and not reflect the times? That to me is the definition of an artist.
Well, I've got one for you.
Yeah.
Another one of our favorites. Gonna let me. Come on. This thing. Refresh. Why? Beep. I literally just had it on the screen. There we go. We're getting there. Computer not happy with me. Come on. Do the thing. Okay, we loading. We spinning. We doing the things. We're closing messages. Hopefully. And we're hitting play. And hopefully full screening at some point in the near future.
Next Tuesday or next Wednesday. All the wretched of the earth. In one way or another. Next Tuesday or next Wednesday. Will destroy the cobblestones in which London and Rome and Paris are built. The world will change, because it has to change. And the Pope will die, because the church is a criminal church. The party is over. That is what is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like shame on the Democrats and I think they do this very well, that they present this illusion of carefreeness in terms of we joke like people can go to brunch and not worry about shit when it's still there. You know, it's just because you might have a president that might be slightly nicer or might pretend to care a little bit more, that you're not thinking or choose not to think about the underlying issues that people still suffer with regardless less. And then when the big bad Republican is in office, those issues are somewhat, or the illusion is they're more magnified when they're not really, well, depending, but like, you know, you're just building upon the issues that have always been there.
Yeah.
But it's like what Yedoye say is, it's like, which also kind of relates to the Attack on Titan sentiment that he did. It's just like, it's the idea that people are living in those walls, like in Attack on Titan, and the further inward you are, the less. And I kind of essentially, and I forgot the name of the innermost wall.
Yeah.
But to me, that's DC. Like more specifically, like the White House area of DC. Like in terms of the bubble that they've created for themselves, that they just live up this lavish lifestyle, or at least the pretending of, you know, of that lifestyle, and like you're immune to the issues that are driving people, like not even so much me, you know, even though they do affect me, but like 4 miles from me down the street, you know, really more so. Like they're not affected by that. And so because of that, they give this air of, oh, everything's okay, you know,
Yeah.
and those in proximity of them also pretend that everything is okay, or try to, when the reality is they're really not. And
Well, and it's
and I love
I'll preface that with it's everything's okay as long as we're in charge. Usually, you know,
Sure.
where that's partially why they fear-mongered Trump so hard, just because they felt like, well, that's the only shot we got of staying in office, because clearly we haven't done anything or anyone to try to fight for. So, you know, now you're stuck, and like, good luck at this point. You know, now Cam's talking about, well, you got to get out there and fight. Okay. You know, we were out here. So, I mean, that's the only preface I've had recently is like, well, ugly face to ugly empire. So maybe people will do something for the next 4 years. But the minute a blue team gets back in office, it's going to be back to sleep. So, but, you know, I think like Baldwin says, like, it don't matter. If it's going to change, it's going to change regardless. So,
well, it's going to change, but I wonder now in what capacity.
Yeah.
Because, as Nina said, the role of the artist is to reflect the times.
Yeah.
And most of our artists
are doing the opposite of that.
Or, like, give the illusion.
Yeah, they're manufacturing. Right.
Right. Which is
well,
what.
It's partially because they're bought into the illusion themselves. I mean, you can get into, especially when it comes to the rap stuff, as far as like who was running a lot of those things and pushing those kinds of lifestyles, especially ones that had how many gallons of baby oil. But you know, yeah, like.
But even like honestly, like with the seeming beef between Kendrick and Drake, like
yeah, it's a bit manufactured
like,
there
okay,
too,
but like who cares? Like,
yeah.
No offense to anybody who's into Kendrick or Drake or whatever. No offense,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, who gives a fuck? Like, I don't care about these.
Yeah, bigger
like,
shit's happening than that.
That like they have.
No offense.
You know, just to create a buzz in order to sell records. Like, we got some mad shit going down, in their case, in the hood, that you're not necessarily talking about, even Kendrick, to a degree. You know? So, and you can make the argument Kendrick is one of the better rappers currently right now.
Yeah.
So,
there's a few out there talking about those struggles, so.
Right, but it's still the idea, and again, I have to go back to Jesse. You know, Jesse doesn't play into all of this kind of capitalist, like, illusionary like bullshit with sex.
I was
like you guys.
I was talking about
like,
him. I was talking with him the other day about like, you know, a lot of rappers have those songs that are just flexing, right?
Mhm.
You know, like I've got my rollies and I've got, you know, I'd love to see what a flex song from Jesse would look like. Like, what would he want to flex like that? You know, like, because it wouldn't be the standard capitalist like stuff. Like he's not going to talk about like, you know, his 1992 like like Hyundai Sonata. You know what I mean? Like that's not something you're gonna flex on people with. But like, you know, it wouldn't even be material like that if I know Jesse. You know.
Mhm.
So,
but I just get mad that his art is not as big as I argue it should be, considering he, to me, and I actually shared that clip with him and saying, you know, I told him like privately, like, this is you, and I'm very thankful for you. That you are remaining true to who you truly are as an artist and are truly reflecting the times that we're in right now. And it sucks that even within our community in independent media that, and you know, shout out to our comrades who do feature him, you know, but I don't think it's nearly enough compared to what he does talk about that really gets to the soul of how people are feeling and just kind of grinding every single day, and it's not featured at all.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And we've all had our especially as like we come into Thanksgiving, you know, family members who frequently stick their heads in the sand and tell you, well, you can't do anything about it, so why do you care? It's like, well, because I have eyeballs and a conscience. I can't possibly like look away like that. You know? Like I can't possibly live in the nice positively like painted room that you locked yourself in, you know? Like that's not positive thinking to me. Like that's a misnomer in and of itself. Humans are not designed to be positive all the time regardless, but you know, it's what you choose to how you choose to handle the negative side of things. But like, you know, I think the fact that we are aware of those negative things, acknowledge them, and at least have tried to do something about it means we're a lot farther along than most. So, you know, but we'll see. You know, I appreciate people like Jesse and them and everyone else here that like, you know, puts the effort in to stay true to that. So, you know,
and yeah, shout out to Yedoye for his article, you know, just I think just kind of remaining true to who he is and not kind of critiquing the capitalism that does exist in his industry, but I think just more generally as far as the mainstream, you know, just critiquing that and just being like, wake up, guys. You know, like there's a lot of shit going down and you can't pretend that things are okay for too much longer or else we're all going to go down if whatever media plans to take us out.
Well, and that's the thing. It's the ones who do have it okay, like, are gonna have it okay for a while. It's the ones of you who won't that, you know, things are gonna be happening for. So look out. It's gonna be rough. Batten down your hatches while you can. But anyway, yeah. So,
and talking about this is why we're demonetized.
Funny that.
You know, funny enough, I think that anime channel got demonetized several times. So, you know, given the content that they put out, but in that vein, this is why we need to ask you guys to help us through alternative means in order to help grow this network and this channel. So if you would like to help us out, you can scan the QR code if you have a smartphone, or you can go to the link that you see at the bottom of that screen there. Or if you're in the YouTube chat, you can type in !donate, and the link will pop up that you can click to it directly, and you can give via Ko-fi to the network directly. We also have other ways, like through CashApp and Venmo, that are in the description as well, if you want to give in those ways. So shout out to our audience for helping us, financially, those who care to. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our content. YouTube hates us and pushes us down in the bowels of hell in the algorithm. So the only way that we're able to at least have our content be featured is through you sharing and liking our content, and help us get to 5K. Well, Reef says free. I'm pushing it to 5. Just so that we're able to continue making content like this. And we appreciate you guys, and thanks for watching.
My audio. Stop it. Doing things that cool. All right. Well, should we get to some chats?
Yes.
Cool.
Who are these people?
Hey, look at that.
Oh.
Look at that. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you.
Thank you. $20.
And he called us gentlemen. Look at that. Look at that. We're gentlemen. Angel said he is putting Sazone on it, as well as sofrito, cubitos, garlic, onion, cumin, oregano, parsley, and a little bit of vinegar. Sure. Sounds good to me.
Also, Angel, I had a channel back in the day. It was a sports channel, and we could do whatever we wanted. I wish I would have kept that channel. I regret deleting it.
Yeah.
I wonder how long ago that was. Probably pre-2016, I would guess. But yeah, even just doing that can be kind of problematic, just in terms of copyright and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So
can be. Fair use is super vague, so they're willing to exploit a lot of that. Sean says the dims of a nice corporate face, the one that says, "I'm sorry, our product hurt you. Here's a coupon." The Repubs are the type that says, "Lawyer up." So, sames. But let me know if I'm still cutting in and out, Sean. Hopefully I fixed some of that. But anyway, you ready for the next one? I'm ready.
Yep.
Cool. So a bit of a short one. But I brought this because I've been a bit worried about AI in general and its overarching control that it might be getting, seeing as how they are willing to put it into every new product ever. But I found this in SheerPost by Matthew Guarglia from the EFF. It says the U.S. national security state is here to make AI even less transparent and accountable. So, yay! I'm sure that'll be fine. So, and I don't think I've heard this anywhere else. But the Biden White House has released a memorandum on advancing United States leadership in artificial intelligence, which includes, among other things, a directive for the national security apparatus to become a world leader in the use of AI. Under direction from the White House, the national security state is expected to take up this leadership position by poaching great minds from academia and the private sector and, most disturbingly, leveraging already functioning private AI models for national security objectives. So that should be great. Private AI systems like those operated by tech companies are incredibly opaque. People are uncomfortable, and rightly so, with companies that use AI to decide all sorts of things about their lives, from how likely they are to commit a crime to their eligibility for a job to issue involving immigration insurance and housing. Right now, as you read this, for-profit companies are leasing their automated decision-making services to all manner of companies and employers, and most of those affected will never know that a computer made a choice about them and will never be able to appeal that decision or understand how it was made. But it can get worse. Combining both private AI with national security secrecy threatens to make an already secretive system even more unaccountable and untransparent. The constellation of organizations and agencies that make up the national security apparatus are notoriously secretive. EFED had to fight in a court a number of times in an attempt to make public even the most basic frameworks of global dragnet surveillance and the rules that govern it. Combining these two will create a Frankenstein's monster of secrecy, unaccountability, and decision-making power. While the executive branch pushes agencies to leverage private AI expertise, our concern is that more and more information on how these AI models work will be cloaked in the nigh impenetrable veil of government secrecy, because AI operates by collecting and processing a tremendous amounts of data. Understanding what information it retains and how it arrives at conclusions will all become incredibly central to how the national security state thinks about issues. This means not only will the state likely make the arrangement that the AI's training data may need to be classified, but they may also argue that companies need to, under penalty of law, keep the governing algorithms secret as well. As the memo says, AI has emerged as an era-defining technology and has demonstrated significant and growing relevance to national security. The United States must lead the world in the responsible application of AI to appropriate national security functions. As the U.S. national security state attempts to leverage powerful commercial AI to give it an edge, there are a number of questions that remain unanswered about how much that ever-tightening relationship will impact much-needed transparency and accountability for private AI and for-profit automated decision-making systems. Thoughts, Caper?
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned this. I think I shared this with you last night, but I was speaking to a connection that my cousin referred me to last weekend regarding my career post teaching, and we were talking about different industries that I can look into getting into. One of them, and he said this, you may not like it, but you might want to consider going into tech in terms of AI and its use in education. You know, how do you feel about that possibility? And I mentioned to him, I work with you and all you talk about is AI all the time. So, but one of the things I mentioned to him was, you know, especially in AI and use of education, yeah, like you can use AI. Look, I have a colleague who basically uses AI to write stuff for him, like,
right,
you know, right now. So, like, another teacher, like not everything, but like certain things he'll use AI for. So if he's doing that, you can imagine what a high school student will start to be able, well, even now, like what they're able to do, you know, with the use of AI. And I think, point being, it's just, yeah, it's kind of the new thing right now. That's kind of like, and now, like, even in our phones, they have AI now. But it does worry me in terms of, like, just how, like, yeah, just what is the limit? Like,
right,
you know, how much is too much in terms of, in the same way that people can be overly reliant on the internet. Like, how much can people be overly reliant on AI to essentially do everything for them? But I think especially given its link within the security sector in our country, like, that I just worried that that's the stuff that you're able to possibly do can be used against you if you're not careful, or
Yeah.
they can get information on you that they do not necessarily need to get. So it just seems to be like the whole thing to make this equivalent like a slice of Swiss cheese. Like it's just so much holes in it of things that can go wrong, and like and there's no checks or balances even within how to make sure that AI is used in a way that is safe, that kind of protects the consumer. But I think more importantly, it's just the idea of, and we've talked about this at length, and I know you've talked about this with India, how do you miss that? Like the use of AI in terms of in certain industries where essentially you do not need a person to do it. You can just have the computer do it. So what does that mean in terms of our economy? You know, in like as far as jobs and pay, etc. So those are the other things that the article didn't mention that I know I've mentioned here before, but I think also need to be kind of looked at and with a critical eye in terms of, especially given this upcoming administration who, you know, they talk a lot about, you know, immigrants and how they're coming in and seemingly taking over jobs, you know, like, and I just wonder if the use of AI is going to rack up under this administration because of that.
There was a Reddit AMA with Stephen Hawking a long time ago, where people asked him what he felt like automation and like kind of like AI wasn't as big a topic in that automation then, but it is now. It was more like manufacturing automation. But I think it still applies to me. Like this is similar automated technology, but it's much more in the fields of like lower level critical thinking jobs, right? Like, you know, where your AI fits that role pretty well. But his answer was if machines produce everything we need, the outcome will depend on how things are distributed. Everyone can enjoy a life of luxurious leisure if the machine-produced wealth is shared, or most people can end up miserably poor if the machine owners successfully lobby against wealth redistribution. So, for the trend seems to be towards the second option, with technology driving ever-increasing inequality. I think that's going to be the key factor. A lot of this AI kind of gatekeeps a lot of jobs that it didn't beforehand, right? Like now it completely eliminates a lot of those. Those people who would have had those jobs now have to find something else to do. So that's either fall backwards towards, you know, manual labor that automation can't do, and or try to fall forwards and like get some form of higher education that is either running those systems and or maintaining those systems, and there's just not going to be as much of that. So I mean, the fact that it's now going to be connected to the deep state with who knows how much data that could give it, you know, and like what it could be connected to. Like, I really would like to not have it near any red buttons because, you know, that might be bad. But yeah, I found it interesting, and I haven't heard a lot of other people talking about it, and wanted to get your thoughts on that. I don't know how much, you know, like, is this just allowing FBI members to use like ChatGPT, or are they going to actively make their own AI systems outside of that, which is what it sounds like, that they're bringing in leaders in the field to try to do that. So, you know, and again, if we're doing it, guess who else is? So that's what's called an arms race. That's what that's called. So it's just now AI arms and data arms, data warfare. So we'll see. But don't look good. I don't like those words. So, and I don't think Trump's going to do any different. He loves that crap for business. That's great for business.
Exactly. So this is why I kind of imagine the timing just seems to be kind of interesting, given that, you know, and then in light of the cultural issues that the Republicans have been campaigning on, that this just kind of fits very neatly in terms of wrapping up a lot of stuff that they've kind of discussed in terms of what they want. And, you know, just the destruction of like certain departments, like, will those be run by AI? Like, you know, so of course there's a lot of unknowns even in that right now, but
yeah,
that worries me.
For sure. Well, talking about these things might be why the AI systems at YouTube have demonetized us. So if you want to fund our own robot AI dogs to help combat their robot AI dogs, make sure to scan that QR code on your screen, or go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork, or put !donate in the chat, or go down on that doobly-doo and find the links there. You know, it's easy. Hurry up, do the thing. But we get it, times are tight. You know, capitalism sucks. So if you can't do that, like and subscribe, hit the share button, comment, let us know what you think. Is this terrifying as I think? Or am I crazies? Well, don't answer that. I already know the answer. But, you know, otherwise, help us get to 3K. Send this to your friends. But thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Julio, to the chats. What do we got? The Accord Lord. Number one problem is no computer has been able to learn anything that someone has not told them to do. That's sentience. When that happens, if possible, will be the end. The big problem is a one-half situation where the system can discern human intent without understanding human emotion. Yeah, I mean, we've seen this kind of play out in a few sci-fi films, and it doesn't work well with us. You know, I mean, between Minority Report and you know, so, but Accord Lord says AI is a tool, nothing more, nothing less. The question becomes, who wields the tool?
Right.
So,
and especially given our government, it's be afraid, y'all.
Angel says, I'm very worried about AI. No one has ever watched Terminator. Now, I don't know if you 80s movies geeks remember Terminator or not, but how do they fucking beat it? That's the key. What did they do? Let's go back to Terminator 2. Huh? They got their own. They got their own Arnie. Right? Arnie helped them. That Arnie was good. We need a couple of good Arnies, is all I'm saying. So, you know, that's why you got to fund that INN RoboDog Foundation. So we need our own little pack of robo dogs. Should be fine. But anyway, you ready to get to our next one?
Yes.
Cool. Let's go.
So you brought this.
Yes, sir.
We normally talk about, it's Thanksgiving, so we talk about the National Day of Mourning that's based in Plymouth, Massachusetts for the last couple of years. And I think you're going to mention them briefly in this segment. But given the parallels of, you know, Thanksgiving and currently what is happening to the Palestinians, currently, you know, this is very fitting.
AKA
given
Colonizer Day. Do you think Israel celebrates their Colonizer Day? They got to, right? They got to have like Israeli Thanksgiving when the British gave them free land that they didn't own.
I'm sure it's whatever their Independence Day is.
Yeah, you'd think, right?
So yeah, I mean, there are obvious parallels between the Native Americans and the Palestinians, but we'll get into it a little bit more in this article. So you brought this from...
I was looking for something along these lines because, you know, the National Day of Mourning is tomorrow, and normally we cover, you know, they always go do a thing over on Plymouth Rock. I forget what that hill that is. Someone will inform me what hill that actually is. But I know the, you know, national Indians of Maine and whatever are like, they get out there every year. They supported Leonard Peltier and all that stuff, which, you know, free Leonard Peltier, been about time. But, you know, so they'll be out there tomorrow, so go check them out. They'll be doing a live stream, I'm sure. That you're welcome to, you know, put that on while your Thanksgiving family is doing things, you know. that'll be interesting to see what happens. But anyway, yeah, I was looking for stuff like this, and I found this from like last year, May last year, I think.
If I remember correctly, yeah.
So,
but it fits given tomorrow. Well,
Yep.
at the time you see this, like tomorrow afterward, given that we're recording this the day before Thanksgiving. So this is from Dr. M. Reza Bentham, who titled this article, Trails of Deception, What Palestinians and Native Americans Share. So Dr. Bentham writes, how can the U.S. government criticize the racist practices of Israel when it has never really confronted its own history of genocide and wars of extermination against the native tribes of North America? Indians are wolves of both beasts of prey, though they differ in shape. President George Washington. The Arabs will have to go, but one needs an opportune moment for making it happen, such as war. That was David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister.
Yeah.
The United Nations, for the first time on May 15, 2023, officially commemorated the Palestinian al-Nakba, or catastrophe, a national trauma that began in 1947-48 and continues to the present. Member states of the General Assembly voted in November to approve a resolution recognizing the suffering of generations of Palestinians who have been under Israeli occupation since Zionist militias forcibly drove hundreds of thousands of them from their towns and villages to establish a Zionist state in Palestine. The United States voted against the resolution and boycotted the event. The Nakba and Israel's ongoing colonization project is a story rarely told in history books and classes. For over 75 years, Washington has used every means at its disposal to keep the Palestinian catastrophe from the American public. The question is why? The answer has much to do with how similar the two countries are with regard to their national ideologies and histories. How can the U.S. government criticize the racist practices of Israel when it has never really confronted its own history of genocide and wars of extermination against the native tribes of North America? While the UN has taken a long overdue step to rebut the Israeli narrative that has denied the Nakba, the United States has yet to pass a standalone resolution apologizing to the native people of the continental U.S. for 300 years of violence, maltreatment, and neglect. I would also add anything regarding black people add to that.
The Irish, the Italians, when they made it over, they weren't too keen for them to be the Chinese who built our railroads. You know, we're kind of like, our batting average on that kind of stuff's not great, is it?
No historical analogy is perfect, but to understand why America continues to remain complicit in perpetuating the Palestinian catastrophe, it's essential to examine the parallels between the U.S. and Israel and how they have chosen to engage with the native peoples. Both the United States and Israel began with conquest and with the goal of possessing and colonizing already inhabited lands to cleanse the land of its native inhabitants. Both histories reveal traits of deception, broken promises, asymmetrical force, and indigenous populations pushed to the margins of society by the conquerors. The language of force, the rhetoric of justification, and idiom of violence are strikingly analogous. Both, for example, have portrayed their brute colonization projects as settlements and the colonizers as pioneers and settlers.
Settlers, right. Because it's like barbaric wastes until they show up.
Right. The 17th century Puritan ideology of divine mission set in notion the pretext for a historical land grab in North America. Early in that century, Protestant clergyman Richard Gakloot called for settlement in the New World, exhorting Englishmen to lay claim to the land and take it as our own. He argued that in order to gain a foothold, settlements in towns, rather than trading posts and forts as the French had established, must be planted. Like Gakloot, Israel's leaders have always been intent on laying claim to all of Palestine and war. We can argue. Throughout war, false and unenforced peace agreements, as we're seeing right now with Lebanon, illegal land grabs, forced expulsions, and arbitrary laws and decrees, Israel currently rules over 78% of the Palestinian homeland. The two countries have used religion to legitimize their land grabs and to ethnically cleanse the indigenous populations. The driving force behind the dispossession of Native American and Palestinians has been the myth of chosenness and exceptionalism, notions that imply supremacy. So, in the way of manifest destiny is a thing here. The idea for Israelis is that we are owed this land given a biblical standpoint.
Right.
So, scroll up, please. In a 2014-2015 Pew Research poll, 48% of Israeli Jews said Palestinians should be transferred or expelled from Israel. And in a 2018 Haaretz Dialogue poll, when asked if they believe that the Jews are a chosen people, 56% of Israeli Jews said yes. The figure rose to 79% among self-identified right-wing respondents. Though the leaders of the Zionist movement were essentially secular men, they used biblical references to establish land claims. Israeli leaders have harnessed religious ideology to state power. They have co-opted the idea of divine election of religious Jews that God had... Scroll down, please.
Yeah, sorry.
That God had selected and entered into a covenant with his favorite children to serve as a light unto the nations, to advance their settler colonial movement. Jewish nationalists continue to use the Book of Genesis as their deed to the land of Palestine, claiming the right based on prior residents thousands of years ago. By the 19th century, disease, warfare, massacres, and U.S. removal...
Sorry.
Scroll down, please.
Yeah.
Policies have emptied the Indian population in the north. The fate of the Southeast Indian tribes was sealed when the U.S. Congress passed the Indian Removal Act in 1830.
Yeah. Yep.
As a result of then President Andrew Jackson's ethnic cleansing policies, an estimated 100,000 Native Americans from 18 tribes were forced from their lands in the Southeast and transferred to Indian Territory, Oklahoma, on land considered undesirable for the white man. Many perished as the U.S. Army marched them westward. On one march, the Trail of Tears, some 6,000 Cherokees died as they were made to walk 1,200 miles to Indian Territory. Palestinians have faced similar hardships as Israel executes its ethnic cleansing policies. Palestinians have known many trails of tears since the Nakba. The more than 750,000 Palestinians and their progeny who were made refugees by the establishment of the Jewish state have never been allowed to return to their ancestral homeland, while Israel's law of return allows Jews worldwide to emigrate to Israel anytime they want. Israel continues to cover Palestinian land with illegal Jewish settlements and the infrastructure to serve them. By the 19th century, Puritan belief of divine covenant transformed into the notion of manifest destiny, a term coined by New York journalist John O'Sullivan in 1845. He wrote that nothing must interfere with the fulfillment of our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions. To fulfill their goal of national expansion, white Americans attempted to physically and culturally banish the native people.
Yep. I can scroll. There we go.
The settler pioneers justified the theft of Indian land on the basis of the emptiness theory and non-use, judgments based on their white cultural understanding on capitalizing upon land. By the late 1800s, virtually all Native Americans were confined to reservations, surrounded by hostile settlers and military forts, and they have become economic dependents of the U.S. government. Although they fought bravely, Native tribes were overwhelmed by the superior firepower of the U.S. Army. Their defeat led to the loss of millions of acres of land and confinement to virtual prisons, reservations, spread across North America. The U.S. Congress in 1887 passed the Dawes General Allotment Act, which opened up communal tribal reservation land to white ownership. By 1934, when the Allotment Act ended, about 90 million of 38 million acres of Indian land had become white-owned. Jewish colonists have similarly portrayed Palestine as an empty land ripe for the picking. Israel's leaders declared that it was the duty of heroic Jewish squatters to redeem the unused land from the desert, eschewing the existence of thriving Palestinian farms and businesses. Zionist mythmakers fostered the image of Palestinian Arab as backward, mostly primitive nomads who had no sovereignty over the land.
Scrolly? Yeah.
His 1923 essay, The Iron Wall, Zionist leader Vladimir Jabotinsky, 1880 to 1940, argued that Zionism is a colonizing adventure and therefore it stands or fails by the question of armed force, and that morality and conscience should not dictate Zionist policy. In 1937, Polish-born Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, in a letter to his son, wrote, "We must expel the Arabs and take their places, and we have to use force to guarantee our own right to settle within those places, the Negev and Transjordan. Then we have force at our disposal." Israel's current right-wing regime, like its predecessors, is engaged in carrying out Ben-Gurion's vision of claiming the Negev. Tel Aviv is currently demolishing the homes of Palestinian Bedouins and transferring them to further uninhabitable lands in the Negev to make way for Jewish colonial settlements. The Bedouins are the only group of Palestinian citizens of Israel that still hold a sizable tract of land, despite the fact that Israel has, over many years, sought to move them to more arid areas.
Bedouins, by the way.
Bedouins, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the United States, Israel has carried out a policy of containment and concentration through superior military force. The imbalance of power between the Israeli occupier and the occupied has forced Palestinians onto two small reservation-like enclaves in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, about 22% of their historic homeland, over which they have no real authority. Within these ever-shrinking, non-continuous enclaves, Palestinians are subjected to military checkpoints and patrols, widespread surveillance, arbitrary arrests, incarceration without trial, targeted assassinations, home demolitions, and daily harassment and humiliation by hostile soldiers and settlers, as well as other forms of state-sponsored terrorism. Palestinians who struggle against occupation, which is their right under international law, are labeled terrorists and militants, while Israel's the acts of violence against them are described as reprisals or defense.
Yep.
In the American quest to conquer the West, a similar language was used. When the U.S. cavalry won a military engagement against a tribe fighting for survival, it was described as a battle. But when Native Americans prevailed, it was a massacre. In today's parlance, Apache leader Geronimo and Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce would be called terrorists. The question of the United States and Israel raises a compelling question. What if both countries be today if their forebears had believed in working with, learning from, and sharing the land with the indigenous people? Removing and inflicting injustices upon them has reinforced in both the U.S. and Israel political cultures of imperialism and supremacy. The loss of home, dispossession, and exposure to political and physical violence that have shaped the lives of Native Americans and Palestinians are crimes against humanity. But in spite of hardships, trauma, and attempts to erase them, Native American and Palestinians have survived and have grown stronger. Neither group has accepted foreign domination, and their culture of resistance continues to aspire. So, I mean, makes sense to me in terms of what we're celebrating. And it's just kind of weird to me that through denial that people, Zionists in particular, do not see or choose not to see the connection.
Right.
Given, but then again, we often don't talk about his Thanksgiving in the way that it should be here either. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, in thinking about the Palestinians and what they're going through, especially if you know U.S. history, it's very easy for you to make those parallels. And so glad that, well, again, this article was written half ago.
Yeah.
But, but I'm glad that we actually have it in terms of making those parallels in connection to our history here and how, like the idea that how can, U.S. talk about democracy and all that, especially when it comes to Palestinians, when you haven't really dealt with the stain of what you did to Native Americans, and as we said, what you've done to Black people, and what you've done to immigrants who've come to this country in the name of capitalism. Like we haven't even really dealt. I would argue some groups slightly better than others.
Yeah.
But it's still the
barely.
idea of like barely, if at all. So, but it's still this idea of, there's this idea of supremacy that's still being upholded today, in terms of what's happening in this country as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we're still dealing with the ramifications of Trail of Tears and all that shit. Like it's just like, and to see it kind of happening actively again is just kind of sad, So bring that to the dinner table Thursday, like it's an important part of this. So, don't let those standard whiteys, forget it. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? But anyway, talking about these things is why we're demonetized. Funny how that works. So scan that QR code on your screen, go to co-v.com/indienewsnetwork and give us some stuff to be thankful for. We appreciate any dollary dues coming our way. And if you can't do that, like and subscribe, do all the algorithm stuff, share the stream, leave a comment. Allegedly, all those things help us. We do read the comments, so feel free to leave us your thoughts. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Right. I saw some new folks in the chats. We got the Earl of Laurel. We've got Wesley Donison.
Actually,
but
Leslie said that seems like ancient history compared to the recent treatment of Iraq.
Yep. It's pretty. I mean, Vietnam and like Korea and what we did to Japan and internment camps and Jim Crow. Like, we've not had a very good history of playing nice with our neighbors, have we?
Leslie, also my deep condolences to Native Americans everywhere. And you know what? I just thought, like, he actually brings up a good point. We're celebrating Thanksgiving tomorrow. Like, obviously, like, spend time with your family, enjoy the food, enjoy being together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying to anybody to cancel it. Like,
well,
look,
I know the Native Americans literally are meant to fast. Like they're talking about fasting for those days.
Right.
So,
If you are that passionate about it and you look, for me, it's just a day. Yeah, I'm gonna have turkey and all that, but I'm going to stay in my house tomorrow.
Right.
Like like it's not like I'm going, and plus tomorrow's going to be shitty weather, so I'm not going in anyway. But like at least at minimum, like if you're thinking about it, at least acknowledge why the holiday is here. At least acknowledge the idea, and you don't have to say this to your family, whatever, but just reflect on the idea that this holiday is an invention to
sell
numb us
Betty
from the
Crocker's
idea.
stuffing. Sorry. And pumpkin pie.
But it's to numb us of the idea of the genocide that was inflicted upon the native peoples of this country. And thinking about that, think about, and you can take it however you want, but reflect on the idea that currently there's something similar happening in not just in Gaza and the West Bank, but also in Congo, also in Sudan. These countries you don't hear about at all, and the genocide at all. Like we did a segment on 7 deadly genocides that the UK has been complicit in. Check that out if you want a little bit more information, like in modern history of the other genocides that you don't hear, and more, honestly, because we talked about genocide that occurred in what African country did we talk about? Damn it. It's gonna come to me eventually, but yeah, so like just reflect on that tomorrow or when you watch this, just in terms of that history with the Native Americans, what's currently happening in Palestine right now. But I think just generally, like, how people still continue to be oppressed in the hand of white supremacy in this country still. So I think, again, you don't need to necessarily get into fights about it with your family or whatever. If you choose to do that, that's on you. But at least quietly reflect on that idea as you eat and hang out tomorrow is all I think you should, at minimum, you should be doing.
I agree. All right, let's get to our last one. So, all right, fam. Look, Zionists who find this video looking for dirt to use on Palestinians because there's now a mafia. They're coming through. You found the wrong channel, homies. Y'all might want to go somewhere else. This ain't gonna be that. What it is going to be is Illinois students who protested Gaza genocide are facing felony mob charges. You heard that right. Felony mob charges. So
it's only going to get worse on the Trump.
Yep.
They made that clear.
Yes, they did. So this is Tara Goodarzi. I hope I pronounced that right. Over at Truthout. Who writes pre-trial hearings for students who participated in a Gaza solidarity encampment in central Illinois last spring are being held on November 20 and December 4th. The outcome of the 4 students' trials will determine whether they will risk up to 3 years of incarceration on felony mob action charges for having exercised their free speech rights on campus. The students from the University of Illinois' Urbana-Champaign, one of the largest...
Champaign.
Yeah, I think that's it. One of the largest public universities in the country constructed an encampment known as the Popular University for Gaza in April 2024. After months of Israel's relentless slaughter of Palestinians, mirroring dozens of other students-led sites across the United States, right? We covered plenty of those.
Right.
The UIUC students' demands were similar to those of their peers, an acknowledgement by the administrations of Israel's ongoing genocide of Palestinians, funded almost exclusively by the United States, a commitment to addressing Palestinians and Muslim affairs on campus, and divestment from all corporations and academic collaborations that support the Israeli occupation of Palestine, aka BDS, or we're not going to give you like tuition, is what it sounds like, right?
Right.
So Illinois student organizers, led in part by the group UIUC Students for Justice in Palestine, attempted to meet with university officials such as Chancellor Robert Jones, who announced his decision to resign from the university just last week. The students tried to, the students tried to engage with administrations over the course of several months, but meaningful negotiations never materialized. Students held demonstrations on campus and remained steadfast in their commitment to the encampment, absent cooperation from the school, citing violations of its student handbook policies relating to 10-cent signs on its quad. The university ushered in scores of public officers spanning 5 different counties in central Illinois and requiring over $137,000 in overtime.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
So,
No.
When was this article written?
I can tell you that. November 26th. Yes, sir.
Oh, yesterday.
Yes, sir.
You pulled this.
Day of, yes.
So
I'm good like that.
We're still in the Biden administration, is it not?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
So, you're worried about Trump doing it starting within the next few months, but you're not worried about Biden has been doing and doing currently. Okay.
Minnesota!
Yeah, pretty much. So students held demonstrations on the quad, all that stuff. So, and requiring over $137,000 in overtime, they paid those police officers for that. For that lovely duty they served.
I'm sure they were so butthurt for getting paid more.
Yep. According to faculty eyewitnesses, students were encircled and threatened with arrest and misdemeanor charges if they failed to cease their demonstrations. The students eventually voluntarily disassembled the encampment. 2 individuals were arrested, but neither were students. The issue appeared to be closed, but it wasn't closed. Over the summer months, UIUC police and Champaign County State Attorney Julia Rietz joined forces to send a clear and heavy-handed message about they intend to handle pro-Palestinian student speech going forward. Rietz, who has been on the faculty of UIUC's law school since 2009, began issuing summonses starting in July 2024 to students who are alleged to have participated in the encampment. A great deal of effort. Yes.
So this was basically back in the spring semester.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I would understand it more if this was kind of going on for the summer even now, but this is just kind of payback from the spring that they're now getting to. Okay.
Yep. So, beginning issuing summons to students who are alleged to participate in the encampment, a great deal of effort and resources seemingly went into targeting these students.
Right.
University police utilized surveillance technology, including the use of license plate readers, as well as students' social media posts. Okay? Y'all listening?
Right.
Class, are you listening? Okay? Y'all leave that shit off there if you're worried, is all I'm saying. Shut the fuck up Friday. It's just, I get it. Also, good idea to have 2 separate social medias, by the way. A semi-professional one that you can use for school and business, and your fun time, just yourself one.
I mean, when I was in college now, granted, emails weren't.
Yes.
It was still new, but even then, it was the idea of what we were told even back then. If you have an email address that you're wanting to use to get information from the school, make sure that it actually was reasonable and not I'm gonna make something up, bigdick54@aol.com or something like that.
Right.
Something crazy. Even back then, and this was in the late 90s, early aughts.
Yeah.
We were instructed on that. back
Yep.
then. So
Makes sense to me. Body camera footage used as well, and the resulting summonses were not for misdemeanors. They contained mandates to appear in court for Class 4 felony mob action charges. What? We're bringing RICO cases. That's what we're doing. So, shout out to Indy, who also related this to what they did to the Stop Cop City protesters, who also were RICO'd, right? Clearly, this is the new tactic. You know, I mean, they also shot Tortuguita, rest in peace. Tallahassee boys represent. But yeah, I mean, not good. So, carry up to 3 years in prison. Several students were charged, including one Palestinian student. On August 16th, 2024, Reefs publicly stated during a local radio spot that these charges were pushed at the direct request of the university. However, the decision to prosecute these students for a felony under the mob action statute was ultimately a prosecutorial decision, despite Riyadh's public claims that free speech is absolutely a protected right. While Reefs was elected by the community to serve the best interest of Champaign County, her private affiliation with the university raises questions about the lens she is willing to use to review the evidence of these cases. Some UIUC faculty fear that Reefs is advocating on behalf of the university first instead of the county, and that the university is leveraging its connection with her to legitimize its mistreatment of students in the eyes of the public.
that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. So the latter concern is particularly relevant because Reefs and the university have moved forward with prosecuting students despite the fact that numerous alumni, employees, and community activists have publicly urged them to stand down and respect constitutional rights. In July of 2024, 37 UIUC faculty sent an open letter to Reefs calling for her to drop all charges against students. Many of these faculty members were present at the encampment and witnessed the peaceful actions of the students. In their strongly worded letter, the faculty explained that many of the participating students have lost family members and were directly affected by Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza. They noted that the students' actions exemplified those of global citizens trying to use their voices for a more just and peaceful world, one of the alleged goals of UIUC. Additionally, the University of Illinois' Board of Trustees' public board meetings recently have included speakers during public comment periods who have condemned the school's actions towards these students as well. So,
yeah.
Reefs and UIUC have chosen to take a more criminally aggressive approach to student concerns over genocide as compared to other Illinois universities. The ACLU of Illinois even spoke out against these charges, noting that they opposed creation of the mob action statute when it was first being considered by the Illinois General Assembly because of their fear that it would be used against protesters in this very way. In their statement, the ACLU explained that lawmakers expressed repeatedly that the mob action statute would not be used to target protesters. But the university's participation in prosecuting its own students for having the courage to publicly denounce genocide is disturbing, but not surprising. The university has a history of supporting a pro-apartheid position. In 1986, after students protested their company's investment in apartheid South Africa, the university ultimately was forced to divest millions. More recently, in 2013, the university hired renowned professor Stephen Salaitia only to rescind his employment offer after reading his tweets denouncing the murderous act of the Israeli apartheid state. In July and August of 2014, Israel murdered over 22,000 Palestinians. Can you imagine trying to get a university gig and not being able to because of your tweets? Like, condemning a genocide? You know? Like, hopefully that history department isn't going to be filled with someone who doesn't, because they're going to be getting stuff wrong. So, in July and August of 2014, Israel murdered over 2,200 Palestinians an assault to which Sailita rightly took great exception after the school rescinded his employment offer. Sailita sued UIUC and earned a settlement award of over $800,000. Embarrassingly, UIUC also earned a former censure from the American Association of University Professors for failure to adhere to principles of academic freedom. The university also maintains a robust portfolio of pro-apartheid investments.
This is why.
Yeah.
This is why. As
Funny how
Sadie
that
says,
works.
follow the money. And
Mhm.
as you were reading, it was just like, this is not about the students. They're the scapegoat. This is about protecting their donors.
The money is there.
So,
right.
The alphabet soup.
The very thing that the students are wanting them to divest
from. Right. Yeah, they don't want to do what they had to do with South Africa. That's what they don't want to do. So, the alphabet soup of university agencies allegedly responsible. So, pro-apartheid investments running upwards of $27 million for 2023 alone by some estimates. The alphabet soup of university agencies allegedly responsible for managing and directing these funds seem purposefully opaque. Inquiries into one entity about its spending only led to finger pointing at another. Certain entities, are public, subject to FOIA reveal, while others are private and cannot be easily scrutinized. Protecting these investments seems paramount to the administration, and unfortunately, the university has not been content with criminal charges against these students alone. Apparently, hell-bent on destroying this movement even further, UIUC recently decided that Students for Justice in Palestine will no longer be officially recognized as a legitimate registered student organization on campus. Other universities, such as Brown, Columbia, George Washington, and Brandeis, have similarly engaged. Brandeis? Why they screw up French pronunciation, Collin? First Illinois, now Brandeis.
Brandeis.
Where's that French department? Huh? What are y'all doing? Teach some people. Have similarly engaged in this type of suppression. Further still, according to numerous faculty members monitoring the situation on campus, UIUC is currently pursuing aggressive academic disciplinary measures against several of the criminally charged students, a procedure that prohibits students from speaking publicly about the process. Wonder why? And allows them limited access to guidance or representation. Man, it sounds like some stuff we used to have some, a Bill of Rights tell you needed, but whatever. Like right to attorney and, all those rights you read. Right to remain silent. I would plead the fifth if I were y'all, just saying. These students now face not only jail time, but the threat of expulsion as well as this is up on their record. That to me is important, right? They're not going to look at what your felony mob count was. They're going to look that it's a felony mob count.
But not only that, this is their way of getting other students in check. Basically being like, if you do this too, this can also happen to you. So this is a scare tactic on the school administration's part to keep their students in line. But I saw that Angel in the chat basically said, why are these students still going to the school? I mean, I get it in terms of
sometimes this is the public one, right? This is the one you probably could afford.
Right.
So
I get it for a lot of these students. It's the idea of and unfortunately, this is the very thing of education that I hate, is the idea of the belief that in order to make it, you need to have a college. So it's the idea basically of that piece of paper is essentially your ticket to employment. decent employment, you know, as well as whatever that offers you moving forward. And that kind of draw is very powerful for a lot of students, especially for students who do not come into, who were not from money.
Yep.
You know, so it's literally a scare tactic in the best possible sense, because it's going to force students to think twice. As you said, this is going to be on their record. So forget getting a job or anything. You know, you're basically screwed for the rest of your life. But then, but along with that, but on the other side of that, this is very much against what happened to free speech.
Well, right. Free speech for them, not for us. Very clearly.
Right.
So,
At a college, no less.
Right.
Like, this is what is happening. So, like, I'm surprised this hasn't not got, well, I'm not surprised and not being surprised, but the idea this hasn't gotten a lot more, well, it did, I think, just in terms of all the colleges, like, back in the spring, but, like, we haven't heard of anything about any protests on campuses since. And honestly, I'm kind of a little surprised by that, because I figured that by September, when students got back, that it will kind of pop up in the news again.
Well,
but
I think the news also like won't cover it.
I mean, the election too.
Yeah, that
you
too.
know, like Kamala was a great scapegoat in like not talking about issues like these at all, especially when it relates to Palestine. But
yeah,
you know, but be interesting to see once Trump in office, what if this is any, probably not, but
no,
so it'll be interesting to see if
so
anything is mentioned regarding this or any other story related to this.
Yeah. So to finish up, as of the date of this publication, Reefs and UIUC have still refused to state whether they are finished with their quest to charge and punish students from last spring. With an existing 3-year statute of limitations for a mob action claim, students who were encampment participants must face another school year with a looming threat over their heads. Of course, the intended impact is clear: to curtail visible pro-Palestinian sentiment on campus. As the current round of Israeli violence in Gaza surpasses the 1-year mark, UIUC has staked its position firmly out as one of the most threatening schools in the U.S. for students who are outwardly opposed to ethnic cleansing, apartheid, and genocide. Guess what, Collin? University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and Reefs' office declined to comment.
Of course.
So, as they would. But,
right.
Closing thoughts?
Wouldn't surprise me if Reefs wasn't a Zionist herself.
Right.
But again, this is, you know, they're protecting their money. This isn't about the students. They're protecting their money and they're protecting their donors, who I'm sure are very much attached to Israel and do not want to divest. So they're willing to let these students kick the bucket in order to protect their finances, which to me is disgusting.
Yep.
And very much diametrically opposed to what a school should be. A school should not be a business, and it should not be run like one. Like, yeah, it's just, I have nothing else to say, but it's just disgusting all around. But it makes sense given the ways of the world, and especially in this country where, you know, money is king.
Cash rules everything around me. Gotta get the money.
So,
dollar bill, y'all.
But
also,
I hope honestly, if it ever comes down to it, students sue.
Yeah.
I hope they do. Like, if they mobilize around that idea and just sue the piss out of UIUC, because like, I don't know, but
yeah. I mean, me and you and our audience both know a particular Chicago pundit who could, you know, get on his comfortable shoes and head on over to the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, you know, and See what's up.
It's like a couple.
Knock at some doors.
It's a couple hours away from Chicago.
Okay, I'll give him some gas money. You know, so, but definitely should look into it. And I'm sure this isn't going to be the only university stuff happening. So keep an eye out for that, and kids stay safe out there, you know? Like, it's hard out here, but talking about these things is more than likely why we're demonetized. So you can go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork, scan that beautiful little QR code on your screen, or if you're in the chat, you can put !donate, get a little link to send us some dollary dues. We appreciate that. As always, links to help donate in the description below. And if you can't do that, like, subscribe, hit the share button, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. You know, is your schools doing the same kind of things? Let us know. But otherwise, thanks for watching.
Okay.
That's it, Care Bear. We did it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up for next week, but
well, we can share the schedule.
Yep.
So these are all the shows that we have on the network now. So don't worry about the date. And assuming that there isn't much changes, but follow us on Twitter at @GetAnyNews if there are changes. But assuming everything is going down as they should, tomorrow night we'll have Snow Himbo streams at 9. So all these times are Eastern Standard Time.
Yep.
Friday we'll have Angel in the afternoon, followed by a clip show of American Tradition at 10:30. Saturday will be Pro Wrestling Talk at 8. Sunday will be How Do We Miss That with You and Indy at 10, followed by Boats sometime after midnight.
Yep.
Monday at 8 is the Maple Files with Himbo and Yeti. Next Tuesday will be an American, and I need to talk to that reminds me I need to talk to Jesse about something special I need to do for my teacher advocacy group, so stay tuned on that. We'll let you know if everything is confirmed regarding that. And then next Wednesday we're back.
Yep. Same
Again,
bad time.
News.
Same bad channel.
Next Wednesday.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it, right?
And
Julio.
Those of you who are shopping, you know, over the next 2 weeks, we still have this code, you guys. So like, especially now, since it's Black Friday, you know, hint, hint, you can go to, actually, if you go back to, so indienews.shop, you can get all of our merch, and then you can get 20% off with the code Jesse. We've had that code for a while, but like,
yes, sir.
Might as well keep it, you know, for Black Holiday sales, Black Friday sales,
Why's it gotta be black?
Sales, you know?
Huh? Y'all explain that shit, huh? Anyway.
Just the idea of the money being in the black versus in the red.
I guess that's what the man wants you to think.
I'm still tied to capitalism at the end. So,
yes, it is.
But yeah, so yeah, head over there if you want to buy something. You got 20% off, and either show off your family or be a part of the resistance, so to speak. So actually, that reminds me, I need to buy.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the week, fam. Remember, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving to all who.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Bye, have a great time.